Wednesday, December 23rd, 2020, and you're listening to Local News Live, a production of AOC Community Media in partnership with the Acadiana Advocate. Their team of journalists print the stories important to our community and state, and we are happy to read you some of those stories. You can hear Local News Live Monday through Friday from 9 a.m. to 10 a.m. on AOC 1, the AOC Community Media channel on YouTube, and on Cypress Street Radio at aocinc.org/CS Radio. You can find the print versions of these stories and more at theadvocate.com. We couldn't bring you this community service without the generosity of our volunteer newsreaders. Today, we're joined by Daniel Rayburn. Welcome to Local News Live, Daniel.
Oh, good morning. Glad to be here.
Thanks so much. I'm going to go listen on Cypress Street. Appreciate it.
Thank you. Hello and good morning, Acadiana. I'm glad to be back with you here today, bringing you the news. We have several things to read off in the headlines, so we're just going to hop right in. Our first headline today is Amazon Center to employ 500. Carencro facility expected to open next December. And this is brought to us by Adam Daigle. The $100 million Amazon Fulfillment Center in Carencro will employ 500 and should be open by this time next year, Governor John Bel Edwards announced on Tuesday. Amazon closed on the deal last week to buy land at the former Evangeline Downs racetrack site for a 1 million square foot fulfillment center, and construction has been ongoing since at least October. The facility, the first of its kind in Louisiana, will be used to pick, pack, and ship bulky items such as patio furniture, outdoor equipment, and rugs, officials said during the announcement. It will cover at least 100 acres just north of Guidry Road. Quote, "Today, we welcome a major investment in our state by the leader in online commerce," Edwards said. "We think it's a perfect complement to what we've been doing here for a long time. It's going to take advantage of the intersection there of Interstate 10 and Interstate 49, and we'll be able to reach much of Louisiana very quickly and really much of the country. I look forward to Amazon's continued investment in our great state." The Fulfillment Center is the latest Louisiana investment by Amazon, which already had invested more than $250 million in the state since 2010, company officials said. It has 7 Whole Foods Markets locations in Louisiana, delivery stations in Baton Rouge and New Orleans, and an Amazon Air Logistics gateway at Louis Armstrong New Orleans International Airport. The online retailer employs over 1,500 full and part-time workers in Louisiana. Quote, "It's an exciting day for us as we strive to offer faster, more efficient deliveries to customers across the state," said Mark Marzano, Amazon's director of fulfillment. "Our ability to open new fulfillment centers is not something that can be done without the strong support of the state of Louisiana and the local Lafayette and Carencro community. This will help us process and fulfill customer orders more efficiently, which is more important now than ever before." Amazon first began negotiations with Louisiana Economic Development in July. State officials offered an incentive package that includes the Fast Start program, which state officials say is the nation's top state workforce program for the past 11 years. Amazon will be eligible for a performance-based grant of $3 million, payable over 2 years, to offset facility infrastructure cost. The fulfillment center will also employ people in human resource management, safety and security, finance, and information technology. Once established, it'll be among the top 20 private employers in Lafayette Parish and among the top 10 employers in industries not related to oil and gas. Quote, "Carencro is extremely honored and equally blessed to have been chosen for Amazon's first Louisiana-based fulfillment center," Mayor Glenn Brasso said. "The economic impact of this facility cannot be overstated in terms of capital investment, job creation with respectable wages and benefits, and the increased interest in residential housing development." In 2020, Amazon ranked Louisiana 5th for the fastest annual growth among its digital entrepreneur partners, state officials said. More than 14,500 small and medium-sized businesses in the state participate in Amazon's fulfillment network, and Louisiana entrepreneurs recorded a 49% growth in year-over-year sales between June 2019 and May 2020. Quote, "Amazon's decision to locate Louisiana's first fulfillment center here validates that our community is attracted to companies across sectors because of our work ethic, creativity, and pro-business attitude, said Greg Gautreaux, President and CEO of the Lafayette Economic Development Authority. As our economy continues to recover from impacts of the pandemic and the energy downturn, this project highlights the importance of our diversification efforts to help stabilize the region's economy. Amazon has expanded significantly during the pandemic as contactless retail has grown in popularity. The company also announced fulfillment centers in South Dakota and Arkansas last week. Company-wide, it has gone on a hiring binge at 1,400 new workers a day, according to a New York Times report, at its warehouses across the country and overseas. It added 427,300 workers between January and October and now employs 1.2 million workers around the world. Moving to our next headline, which reads, Local Governments Left Out of Stimulus Package. And this is written by Mark Bellard. Most people can count on a $600 check if the $900 billion COVID-19 relief package passed by Congress late Monday night takes effect. The unemployed will receive $300 more in benefits, and even Amtrak gets $1 billion. But city and parish governments suffering from depressed sales taxes and higher expenses will receive nothing. Local officials still harbor hopes that Congress will try again soon to help out the entities that hire police, trash collection, delivery drinking water, and handle sewage problems. What they know for certain is that without help, local governments will be laying off employees and ratcheting back services. Some municipalities could face bankruptcy. And in top-down states like Louisiana, state government will be called on to help, leading to budget deficits counted in the hundreds of millions of dollars. Quote, "We were hoping to get in on this round of funding," said Guy Cormier, Executive Director at the Police Jury Association of Louisiana. Earlier this year, locals were told to be patient when the first $2 trillion Corona Stimulus Act, which included money to reimburse local governments spending on the pandemic, went through Congress. Quote, "We were told that this next round of funding would include monies for loss of revenues, and now they're not going to include anything for us, period, including expense reimbursement," Cormier stated. Orleans Parish already is cutting back firefighters' hours, he said. Quote, and in other parishes, the folks I'm talking to are saying if we can't get any relief in next year's numbers with budgets being so tight, they're going to have to look at furloughing more people. We still have $430 million in CARES Act applications that were approved but couldn't be funded. So that shows that there's a great need out there, said John Gallagher, Executive Director of the Louisiana Municipal Association. Quote, "I actually laid off 34 individuals, and they're not going to be rehired in anticipation of falling revenues," said Clarence R. Fields, mayor of Pineville, a town of 15,000 on the Red River near Alexandria. "We also cut 38 more positions out of our budget." Pineville had 280 positions before the pandemic. About half of them were firefighters and policemen, though only 4 vacant public safety positions were removed. The rest came from the service sector and administration, with the town merging departments. This has led to some slowdowns in services, but Fields said that the main impact has been on facilities and special events. Quote, "Anything that could have been sent to local government would have been a big help. Local government will face some challenges in this upcoming year of 2021, and we'll have to overcome those challenges," Fields said. Moody's Analytics, one of the Wall Street firms that set interest rates for government borrowing, projected state and local governments nationwide will face a total shortfall ranging between $330 billion and $470 billion through the fiscal year of 2022. Small towns and mid-sized cities in Louisiana already were suffering financially before the pandemic, with their populations moving to bigger cities. Louisiana Legislative Auditor Darrell G. Porpera is responsible for keeping up with the finances of Louisiana towns and villages. His office keeps a list of the fiscally distressed towns with the biggest financial problems. The list contains 15 towns now, but Porpera said by next week the list is expected to grow to about 22. But that doesn't mean big cities haven't felt the brunt of the COVID-19 pandemic, which has required business shutdowns. Despite experiencing revenue declines and increased expenses, East Baton Rouge Parish, which has a diverse economy, hasn't had to lay off or furlough any employees. Quote, "We have had to use a portion of our emergency reserves to offset revenue declines to balance our budget in 2020 and 2021, East Baton Rouge Mayor President Sharon Weston Broom said. We have also deferred capital purchases and continue to have COVID-19 related expenses. Any additional federal or state funding that we receive will help us to continue to provide services to our citizens at current levels, replenish our reserves, make necessary capital purchases, and cover the additional COVID-19 related expenses." Local governments across the state are in dire need, said Lafayette Mayor President Josh Guillory on December 14th, as he wrote to U.S. Senator Bill Cassidy of Baton Rouge and John N. Kennedy of Madisonville, asking that the talked about $160 million for local governments stay in legislation. Congress not including local governments in the relief package also will have a significant impact on the revenues available to the state to pay for services. Quote, "The state ultimately subsidizes and assists many local governments," said State Representative Jerome Z. Zereng, the Homa Republican, who acts as chair of the House Appropriations Committee and is in charge of the state's budget. The exact amount of the shortfall and estimates have been floated somewhere between $600 million to more than $1 billion won't be set until the Revenue Estimating Conference, probably after the new year, which certifies how much money can be expected from taxes, fees, and royalties. The congressional package provides some relief for schools, transportation, and employment. The conference had been waiting for the congressional package numbers to enable states' economists to figure out how the money will be used. Will the state be able to bail out cities and towns that go bankrupt? Quote, "How we are going to bail them out city after city? We can't. There's not enough money. The state's already strapped," said State Senator Bodie White, the Central Republican who heads the State Finance Committee. "Some cities are going to be in trouble, and if they don't start cutting, and a lot of them have cut nothing, they're going to be in deeper and deeper trouble." And now, taking a short break between headlines, an announcement. The Acadiana Symphony Orchestra takes the virtual stage. The Acadiana Symphony Orchestra announces that they are shifting the fall portion of their ASO 360 revival season to a virtual live stream platform. ASO believes that this is the unquestionable solution to keeping our community safe while still providing opportunities for local musicians to share their passion and earn income despite mandated restrictions and earn uncertain venue viability. The Acadiana Symphony Orchestra has and will always remain committed to providing outstanding performances to Acadiana and fueling the cultural economy of our region. Symphonies, businesses, and organizations across the country are having to rethink, retool, and reinvent. And we are no different. So thank you for your grace and your patience as we map out the next few months. We are working tirelessly behind the scenes to solidify plans for these virtual concerts, and it is our commitment to you that we will clearly and concisely communicate ASO 360 revival season details in the coming weeks. At a minimum, we are certain that you will receive the highest quality live streaming performance, which you can enjoy from virtually anywhere. And the AOC 360 remaining lineup looks as such. They will have a performance of Adore on Friday, February 12th, 2021, tentatively scheduled at the Acadiana Center of the Arts. A performance of Empower on Friday, April 16th, 2021, scheduled at St. John's Cathedral. And finally, a performance of Revive, which is scheduled for Thursday, May 13th, 2021, at St. Mary's Church. And now we'll return to our Acadiana headlines. Our next reads, contact tracing to continue over holidays. Callers in Lafayette Parish Schools program will get 2-day break. This was written by Ben Myers. The Lafayette Parish Schools will continue contact tracing calls throughout the winter break, except for a 2-day break from December 24th to December 25th, and additionally from December 31st to January 1st, a spokesperson said Tuesday. Helping those efforts will be a new online tool for students to report positive tests, which is required. The district worked out its holiday contact tracing schedule after a controversy over its handling of contact tracing during Thanksgiving. The district's health services director, Julie Bueller, instructed 45 nurses not to work for 4 days over the November holiday from Wednesday to Saturday. Complicating matters, the district failed to notify parents of its scaled-back holiday operation. Some were upset when notified the following week that their child had been exposed prior to the holiday. It was unclear when the district learned of the coronavirus cases associated with those exposures, and school officials said afterwards that administrative staff had filled in for nurses in making contact tracing calls during the break. Yet the district also acknowledged that some calls had been put off. Winter break staffing for contact tracing will be, quote, dependent on each situation, according to spokesperson Allison Dickerson. People who have been in close contact with infected people are expected to self-quarantine for at least 10 days in most cases, according to state and federal guidelines. It is critical for schools to immediately notify close contacts upon learning of a positive test result among students and staff, according to the Louisiana Department of Health guidance. And moving to our next headline. School system names principals of the year. Lafayette Parish School System administrators visited schools this week to formally announce the 2020-2021 Principal of the Year for elementary, middle, and high schools. In hand with balloons and a token of appreciation, administrators surprised each principal with the announcement that they had been selected as Principal of the Year in their respective category for the Lafayette Parish School System. The winners are, for elementary school, Ginger Richard, Principal of Green Tea Linden Elementary School. For middle school, Janae Hebert, Principal of Acadiana Middle School. And for high school, Renee White, Principal of Ove Como High School. Each year, principals nominated by their peers and administrators select a Principal of the Year based on those nominations. The winners of the district move on to a state competition. And we're going to, again, step away from our local and state headlines to bring you our Today in History as well as our horoscope today. So, let's look at our Today in History. This is brought to you by the Associated Press. Today is Wednesday, December 23rd, the 358th day of 2020. There are 8 days left in the year. Today's highlights and histories include, on December 23rd, 1954, the first successful human kidney transplant took place at the Peter Brent Brigham Hospital in Boston, as a surgical team removed a kidney from 23-year-old Ronald Herrick and implanted it in Herrick's twin brother, Richard. On this date in 1783, George Washington resigned as Commander-in-Chief of the Continental Army and retired to his home at Mount Vernon in Virginia. In 1913, the Federal Reserve System was created as President Woodrow Wilson signed the Federal Reserve Act. In 1933, President Franklin D. Roosevelt restored the civil rights of about 1,500 people who had been jailed for opposing World War I. In 1941, during World War II, American forces on Wake Island surrendered to the Japanese. In 1962, Cuba began releasing prisoners from the failed Bay of Pigs invasion under an agreement in which Cuba received more than $50 million worth of food and medical supplies. In 1968, 82 crew members of the U.S. intelligence ship Pueblo were released by North Korea 11 months after they had been captured. In 1972, a 6.2 magnitude earthquake struck Nicaragua. The disaster claimed more than 5,000 lives. In 1986, the experimental airplane Voyager, piloted by Dick Rutan and Jenna Yeager, completed the first non-stop, non-refueled round-the-world flight as it returned safely to Edwards Air Force Base in California. In 1997, a federal jury in Denver convicted Terry Nichols of involuntary manslaughter and conspiracy for his role in the Oklahoma City bombing, declining to find him guilty of murder. Nichols was sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole. In 2003, a jury in Chesapeake, Virginia, sentenced teen sniper Lee Boyd Malvo to life in prison, sparing him the death penalty. 10 years ago today, mail bombs blamed on anarchists exploded at the Swiss and Chilean embassies. In Rome, in the Swiss, Chilean embassies and in Rome, seriously wounding 2 people. The Chicago Board of Election Commissions ruled that former White House Chief of Staff Rahm Emanuel was a resident of the city and therefore eligible to run for mayor. 5 years ago today, protesters blocked access to a terminal and caused significant holiday traffic delays around the Minneapolis-St. Paul International Airport after staging a Black Lives Matter rally that also briefly shut down part of the Mall of America. The demonstrations were organized to draw attention to the recent police shooting of a black man in Minneapolis. And 1 year ago today, Boeing ousted CEO Dennis Muhlenberg as the company remained engulfed in a crisis stemming from the crash of 2 of its 737 MAX airliners. A court in Saudi Arabia sentenced 5 people to the death of the killing of Washington Post columnist Jamal Khashoggi, a critic of the Saudi royal family. And finally, the 5 were among 11 people who were put on trial over the killing. And now we'll look at some of today's celebrity birthdays. We have actor Ronnie Shell, who has turned 89. Former Japanese Emperor Akihito is 87. Actor Frederick Forrest is 84. Rock musician Droma Cohen is 80. Actor-comedian Harry Shearer is 77. Singer-musician Adrian Belew is 71. Rock musician Dave Murray of Iron Maiden is 64. Singer Terry Weeks has turned 57. Rock singer Eddie Vedder, lead of Pearl Jam, has turned 56. Rock musician Jamie Murphy has turned 45. Jazz musician Irvin Mayfield has turned 43. Actor Estella Warren has turned 42. Actor Anne-Marie Perez de Tegal is 30 today. And finally, actor Spencer Daniels has turned 28. And we'll move from there to our horoscopes for the day. We begin with Capricorn, which has birth dates of December 22nd to January 19th. Keep the peace at home and when dealing with friends and relatives. It's better to observe and be objected when others decide to share opinions. For Aquarius, which is birthdays of January 20th to February 19th. Refuse to let outside influences slow you down or cause uncertainty. Look for opportunities. You will meet individuals who can help you bring about positive change. For Pisces, which is birthdays of February 20th to March 20th. Be a leader, not a follower. Set the standard, follow your heart, and do what you do best. Don't let an emotional situation slow you down. For Aries, which is March 21st to April 19th birthdays. Refuse to get involved in someone's dilemma. You have enough to do without taking on responsibilities that don't belong to you. Less talk and more action will help you reach your objective. For Taurus, which is April 20th to May 20th birthdays. Be precise and pay close attention to detail. Don't jump into something that has too many variables. Leave no room for mistakes or indiscretions. Play by the rules and avoid those who won't. For Gemini, which is birthdates of May 21st to June 20th, be open to suggestions and willing to try something new, but don't get carried away. Someone you least expect will disappoint you. If you want something done, do it yourself. For Cancer, which is birthdays of June 21st to July 22nd, emotions will surface and anger will set in if you aren't careful. Take a positive approach when dealing with partners and be willing to meet people halfway. Take care of unfinished business. For Leo, which is July 23rd to August 22nd birthdays, uncertainty regarding your reputation, position, or status will leave you in a quandary. When in doubt, sit tight and let things unfold naturally. Pay more attention to self-improvement. For Virgo, which is August 23rd to September 22nd birthdays, take the initiative and make things happen. It's up to you to lay the groundwork. Don't take risk with your or someone else's health. Abide by the rules and focus on what you can do. To Libra, which is birthdays of September 23rd to October 23rd, be careful what you spend your money on and protect your possessions, passwords, and documents. Look at all the alternatives and make changes that lead to a less stressful lifestyle. For our Scorpios, which is October 24th to November 22nd birthdays, you need to chill out, contemplate what's next, and refuse to let others dictate what you can do. Use your imagination, consider what makes you happy, and move forward with a good plan. And our final horoscope of the day is for Sagittarius, which is November 23rd to December 21st birthdays. Reach out, touch base with people you miss, and spread a little joy to the folks you love. Make plans that will give you something to look forward to when the time is right. And that's all for our horoscopes today. So we are going to take a moment to jump back into our state headlines. And our next reads as such. A lot of work to do. Edwards extends phase 2 restrictions for 21 more days. And this is brought to us by Sam Carlin. Governor John Bel Edwards has extended the state's phase 2 coronavirus restrictions for another 3 weeks, as hospitalizations and other metrics remain high ahead of Christmas. The governor said on a Tuesday news conference that he will keep the, quote, status quo for another 21 days. The third surge of coronavirus cases has filled up hospitals around the state and prompted the governor last month to roll back occupancy at some businesses and close down most bars as part of the modified phase 2 restrictions. Quote, "It's clear we still have a lot of work to do," Edwards said, "but there have been some slight improvements that we've noticed." Edwards pointed to coronavirus data that shows that the state may be seeing a plateau of cases, but at a, quote, very high level. Cases began surging in November in Louisiana after the state provided the national surge of cases and hospitalizations for weeks. The governor said percent positivity, a crucial metric of the share of coronavirus tests returning positive results, has dipped, which is encouraging. At the same time, the number of people hospitalized with COVID-19 remain above 1,600, which was the peak of a summer wave of the virus that overwhelmed some hospitals across the state. Louisiana has confirmed nearly 7,000 deaths from COVID-19. Edwards also pleaded with people not to hold traditional large Christmas gatherings, warning that the virus will spread to unprecedented levels. The decision to extend the modified phase 2 restrictions keeps 50% occupancy levels in place for most businesses and allows bars to open indoors at 25% only if their parish has seen two straight weeks of 5% or less positivity. It also comes as the state embarks on a mass immunization effort that officials hope will end the pandemic in 2021. As of Tuesday, the state's hospitals have administered 22,108 doses of vaccine. The state received 39,000 doses of Pfizer's vaccine last week and is slated to receive another 28,275 doses of that vaccine and 79,500 doses of a vaccine manufactured by Moderna in this week's shipment. About half of those doses of Moderna's vaccine will go straight to long-term care facilities such as nursing homes, through a federal partnership with Walgreens and CVS that will begin immunizations after Christmas. The rest will go mainly to smaller hospitals and first responders through Morris & Dixon, a North Louisiana pharmaceutical distributor. By next week, the state will have received more than 210,000 doses of vaccine, said Dr. Joe Cantor, the head of coronavirus response at the state health department. There are between 200,000 and 215,000 people included in the Phase 1A of the vaccine distribution, compromising mostly hospital workers and people who live and work at long-term care facilities. Both Pfizer's and Moderna's vaccine require 2 shots several weeks apart. Cantor said the state will likely follow federal guidance on whom to include next in line. A federal advisory panel on Sunday recommended states include people 75 and older and frontline essential workers, followed by those who are 65 years or older, people with significant comorbid health conditions, and other essential workers. Depending on the details, that could be a huge share of Louisiana's population. Louisiana's health officials are still reviewing the guidance and are awaiting more detailed information. Quote, "It's not going to look drastically different from what the feds recommended," Cantor said of the state's next priority groups for the vaccine. Cantor said it's not yet clear how many people who have been offered the vaccine have refused so far, though he said that the, quote, X factor in the state's mass immunization program will be how many people will show up immediately to get the vaccine. In an effort to use extra doses, the state has given vaccines to some people outside Phase 1A, such as those with large state renal disease who receive dialysis, officials said. The shift to vaccinating people outside of the first priority group will be gradual and not like flipping a light switch, Edwards added. Louisiana initially was told to expect 40,000 doses of the Pfizer vaccine. In the second shipment, which began arriving Monday, but that was downgraded to less than 29,000 doses last week. General Gustav Perna, the head of the Trump administration's vaccine distribution, apologized last weekend for a, quote, miscommunication with states over the number of doses, saying not all vaccine doses that were produced were ready to be released because of quality control measures. Louisiana expects to receive 27,500 additional doses of Moderna's vaccine and 36,075 doses of Pfizer's vaccine next week. Edwards' extension of Phase 2 restrictions also follows a Louisiana Supreme Court decision to vacate a Baton Rouge judge's ruling in a high-profile case about a previous iteration of the virus's rules. The state high court found that Judge William Morvant of the 19th Judicial District prematurely ruled that a petition used by House Republicans to toss all of Governor Edwards' virus restrictions was unconstitutional. Instead, he should have weighed the merits of the case, such as whether the Republican lawmakers followed the law when filing the petition before deciding it was unconstitutional. Attorney General Jeff Landry, a Republican representing the lawmakers, said Monday the rulings, quote, maintains that Louisiana is not a dictatorship and that the governor's orders are not enforceable. Edwards said Tuesday he is certain the Republican lawmakers did not follow the law when filing the petition because they didn't meaningfully consult with public health officials, a requirement of the obscure SARS pandemic-era law that they invoked. That point was not argued in Morvant's courtroom last month because he suggested the position was moot as it sought to revoke coronavirus restrictions that had expired when Edwards issued a new public health emergency declaration. Quote, "I am absolutely certain the statute is unconstitutional," Edwards added. "We cannot have a system of checks and balances where one body of the legislation can overrule the governor." And with that, we're going to look at a headline that lays out what a modified Phase 2 means for the citizens of Louisiana. So let's look at what it means for bars. Parishes with greater than 5% positivity must close indoor consumption, but outdoor seating is okay for up to 50 people. Parishes below a 5% positivity rate can have indoor consumption of up to 25% of occupancy and can continue with outdoor consumption. Here are all the venues that must follow a 25% occupancy limitation, and that is just going to be for sporting events. What falls under the 50% occupancy statute is gyms and fitness centers, restaurants, coffee shops, and cafes, casinos and video poker parlors, non-essential retail, barbershops and beauty shops and nail salons, and movie theaters. And then churches and places of worship will be allowed a 75% occupancy. And finally, looking at event centers, the indoor limit for event centers will be 25% occupancy or up to 75%, 75 people, whichever is the smaller number. And then outdoor gatherings at event centers are limited to 25% of the occupancy or up to 150 people. And on that note, we will look at the latest numbers for Louisiana concerning coronavirus. There are currently 266,953 cases, 6,813 deaths across the state, 1,640 hospitalizations, and there have currently been 22,108 vaccine doses administered. And now we'll look at our next headline. It reads, "Man shows symptoms of virus after flight. MedTech gave CPR to man who died after landing in New Orleans." A man who spent 40 minutes pumping the chest of an airline passenger with the coronavirus to keep him alive as their flight was diverted to New Orleans has started feeling symptoms of the illness, he said Monday. Tony Aldapa, who identified himself on Twitter and is in national media interviews as a Los Angeles-based emergency medical technician who was on United Flight 591, which was forced to make an emergency landing in New Orleans after leaving Orlando, Florida, bound for Los Angeles on December 14th. The flight was diverted to get help for a passenger who had stopped breathing. Aldapa was one of the several passengers who spent part of the flight administering CPR to the man, who was taken off of the flight in New Orleans and later pronounced dead. The dead man has been identified as Isaias Hernandez, 69, also of Los Angeles, according to a report from Jefferson Parish Coroner Gary Savichinvich. The cause of death was listed as respiratory failure due to COVID-19. Hernandez's wife allegedly told emergency personnel that her husband had not been tested for COVID-19, but had been showing symptoms when they got on the plane in Orlando, according to numerous media reports. During an interview on KABC radio in Los Angeles on Monday afternoon, Aldapa said he noticed other passengers giving Hernandez CPR and offered to step in if one of them needed a break. He and two other passengers took turns for 40 minutes until the flight landed, he said. The CPR did not include mouth-to-mouth. For part of the flight, Hernandez had an oxygen mask, and then they switched to an ambu bag, a mask with a balloon-like attachment that allows for breaths to be provided without contact. Quote, "We pumped until our arms were tired," Aldapa said, adding that he was, quote, "drenched in sweat from the effort." Hernandez didn't look good, Aldapa said. "I could tell something was wrong with him. He wasn't breathing. He wasn't responding." Aldapa said he never got the names or information of other passengers who also performed CPR. Since returning home, however, Aldapa has begun to show symptoms of COVID-19 and is quarantining. Aldapa praised the flight crew and the first responders who took the man off the flight. The flight later continued to Los Angeles with the other passengers aboard. According to a statement from United Airlines, company officials are working with the Federal Centers for Disease Control and Prevention to help notify other passengers that may have been exposed to the coronavirus. Aldapa said he would not hesitate to fly again, and his only regret was not getting involved more quickly. Quote, "Looking back, I would not change my actions, but I may have stepped up earlier," he said on Twitter. We're going to step away from the headlines once again for this short announcement. Everyone should have shelter, especially during the holiday months. Christmas is here, and Louisiana nights are getting colder. We don't have time to wait. Due to COVID-19 and concerns for community spread, there has been a dramatic decrease in available shelter beds. Those beds will remain unavailable throughout the holidays. That means many experiencing homelessness may have no other options than to sleep on the street. Throughout this pandemic, Acadiana Regional Coalition on Homelessness and Housing has been able to utilize local hotel and motel rooms as temporary housing solutions. From there, case managers help our fellow Acadians transition to permanent housing. ARC is very proud of their success in keeping those that they serve safe from COVID-19 and on their way to long-term stability. However, The number of homeless is growing, and the holidays are here. ARC needs your help to get our neighbors out of the cold and into warm, safe housing for holidays. Can you help today? If so, please go to arcacadiana.org. That is ARCHACADIANA.org. Or, if you would prefer to give by check, please mail to ARC, ARCH, at P.O. Box 3936, that's 3936, Lafayette, Louisiana, 70502. And with that, we will move on to our sports headlines of the day. Our first reads, Tony's defense does the talking. And this is brought to us by Kevin Foote. Upon learning UL's opponent for Saturday's 2:30 First Responder Bowl in Dallas on ABC, the first thought for many around the Raging Cajuns program was that's where defensive coordinator Patrick Toney came to Cajun country from a few years ago. Unfortunately, we won't really know his feelings about how cool this bowl matchup is for him. The way college football works these days, assistant coaches are off limits to the media. Maybe they might get a Zoom call once in a while in a year, but no availability that allows you to dig deep into the coach's psyche is available. Throughout the season, however, we've been given glimpses of Toney's value to UL's program by those around him. Statements from Coach Billy Napier and his players allow us to know Toney a little more than, say, the University of Texas San Antonio's current defensive coordinator, Tyron Nix, or safeties coach, Jess Lope. One personality trait he seems to possess is aggressiveness. Safety Braylon Traha hinted at this when he said, quote, "We talk about it every week. Get turnovers. You're going to get turnovers in the game." But linebacker Farrod Gardner peeled back another layer to the general philosophy by detailing the mindset behind Toney's heavy emphasis on that goal. Quote, "Coach Toney always preaches to us takeaways," he said. "It's not turnovers. They're called takeaways because we're taking the ball away. That's something that we work on the defense." Perhaps that's why Toney opened some eyes earlier in his career at Sam Houston State when he led the Bearcats' defensive force to 24 turnovers, including 17 interceptions. Another part of Toney's approach is being relentless and always reaching for new heights. Quote, "In the last game, we had 3 interceptions," Gardner said earlier this season, "but we didn't have any forced fumbles. So I'm going to take it upon myself this game to try and get that done." Perhaps that's why the Southeastern Lions secondary ranked number one nationally in the FCS in pass efficiency defense, 2nd in interceptions, and 5th in red zone defense in 2013 and 2014. On a different note, Napier revealed earlier this year he can tell how nervous Toney is by how many empty cans of soda are on his desk during a long film study session. So aggressive, relentless, and perhaps a bit obsessive. Like most coaches, Toney has his unique sayings and motivational tactics to get his players to perform. Junior cornerback Eric Guerrer revealed earlier this season Toney is big on, quote, junction points. Isolated situations during the course of a game where one of his defenders is essentially put in a one-on-one situation and must win that battle for the good of the team overall. Quote, "We take that to heart and we do great with that," Guerrer said. "We do drills in practice to get better at that, and we just go into the game and execute." Perhaps that's why Toney helped UTSA's Roadrunners reach their first bowl in the program's history in 2016, while his safeties combined for 282 yards, 15.5 stops for losses, and 20 pass breakups. No catchy slogan, however, works over the long haul without displaying consistent leadership. Junior Jalen Johnson gave us a glimpse into Toney's leadership qualities last month. Quote, "It starts from the safety spot. We've got to hold everyone accountable," Johnson said of Toney's actual position group. "We're doing a really good job with them this year." Perhaps that's why the Cajuns defense allowed just 21.8 points a game, with 15 interceptions in 10 games. Linebacker Joe Dillon has been around this program since 2015, and has played under multiple defensive coordinators during that time. He knows what UL has in its 30-year-old first-year coordinator. Quote, you just have to know Tony, Dillon said. He's one of those guys that you would like to play for. You would want to go out on the front lines for him because he would do the same for you. The last DC was like that as well. Tony has more of a relatable type of person in a way. Perhaps that's why first-year starter at linebacker Lorenzo McCaskill is one of the nation's leaders with 72 tackles in 10 games. Under Tony's leadership, new players on the scene like sophomore cornerback Mekhi Gardner have begun to realize their potential. Quote, I control my opportunity, Gardner said of his breakthrough season with 24 tackles, 3 interceptions, and 7 pass breakups. That's all it was. I'm still trying to get better, though. At the end of the Appalachian State game, it wasn't my best game. I just need to watch film and do what I can to do better for my team. Veteran players have benefited as well. Fifth-year senior Cameron Solomon has shined both as a starter when called upon, as well in a safety rotation. Quote, I feel like our whole defense can play, Solomon said. Even the freshmen we brought in. We've got an outstanding defense and we have an outstanding defense and offense, to be honest. All of us can play, so when one person goes down, it's really no worry. We know the next man will do the job because all of us can play. From the outside looking in, Tony doesn't appear to be a guy looking for an easy way out. Perhaps that's why the defense has maintained focus, despite the coronavirus pandemic shutting down operation just 1 week after Tony was named as UL's new defensive architect after Ron Roberts left for Baylor. It's why the defense bailed out the offense's slow start for much of the season. Quote, as a defense, really as a whole team, we uplift each other, Solomon said. So like the offense comes out and they don't get the job they want, we just like to talk to each other and be like, it's okay. We're going to come out and do this for y'all. Keep your heads up. We're going to get a 3 and out, and we're going to keep the ball back and go score. So when Tony walks on the field at Gerald J. Ford Stadium on Saturday, there will be members of both programs that know him better than many of us do. Most of his talking, though, will be done by UL's defense on the field. And to our next sports headline, it reads, Pelicans Ingram bet on himself and was rewarded. Now comes the hard part. This is written by Christian Clark. As the New Orleans Pelicans' disastrous bubble performance neared an end in August, Brandon Ingram remained resolute. His team had been eliminated from play-in tournament contention for several days by the time it was set to face Orlando in its final regular season game. Up to that point, the Pelicans had gone 2-5 against a favorable schedule during the restart, the equivalent of stepping on the comb of a rake and getting whacked in the face. Quote, I think what we just went through will make us consistent, Ingram said. I think we all take it into next year and we'll be all right. I think we'll have no problem trying to make the playoffs or whatever it is. We'll be fine. Ingram's belief that the Pelicans were headed for bigger things never wavered. In the following days, a determination that New Orleans would never wither like that again as long as he was there hardened. How could it not, with everything that Ingram had overcome in the previous year and a half? Quote, when we left the bubble, Executive Vice President David Griffin said he doesn't intend to miss the playoffs again in his career. For a significant portion of the summer before last, Ingram couldn't raise his right arm above the shoulder level. In March 2019, he underwent surgery to alleviate blood clotting, a condition that not only 3 years earlier had forced Chris Bosh into an early retirement. Ingram's surgery was a success, but to excise the clot, doctors had to remove a portion of one of his ribs. Ingram couldn't hoist shots with his dominant hand when the trade was made that sent him, Lonzo Ball, and Josh Hart to New Orleans. The timing of all that upheaval was tricky because Ingram was due for a rookie extension. He was presented with an offer, which he turned down. Quote, he believed in himself, said Donald Ingram, Brandon's father. I believe in him. Instead of inking the dotted line last year, we rolled the ball. We took a chance on, I know I'm better than that. I'm better than that right now. And that's what he did. In August, Ingram was cleared to return to the court without restrictions, and he quickly became he quickly began refining his jump shot. Pelicans assistant coach Fred Vincent noticed that Ingram was generating too much power with his arms and not enough with his legs. To correct that, Vincent put down 5 strips of athletic tape around the three-point arc. Vincent told Ingram to line up behind each strip and pretend like he was at the free throw line. The mechanical tweaks Ingram made were an immediate success. 3 times in his first 4 games, Ingram connected on 4 three-pointers. He hit 4 threes in a game only once in a Lakers uniform. In early November, he exploded for 40 points in Brooklyn. With then teammate Drew Holiday getting off to a slow start and fellow forward Zion Williamson sidelined, Ingram became New Orleans' primary option. Quote, "With everything that happened, you didn't know if he was going to come back and be who he needed to be right away," said Jerry Stackhouse, the Vanderbilt men's basketball coach who had mentored Ingram during middle school. Quote, "He dispelled all those rumors early." Ingram was named an All-Star in February, and in August, he won Most Improved Player. This offseason, he was rewarded with a 5-year, $158 million contract and the maximum number of years in dollars allowed. Ingram celebrated with his family back in Kinston, North Carolina, remotely because of the pandemic. Quote, "To bounce back from that major surgery that he had, I'm satisfied with it being a max deal," Donald Ingram said. "But I'm more than satisfied with that my child is in perfect health, that he came back 110%. After Ingram's breakthrough season, he'll now be expected to deliver a worthy follow-up effort. He was stellar in the Pelicans' first preseason game, tallying 22 points, 6 assists, 3 steals, and 1 block. 4 nights later, Milwaukee's Chris Middleton outplayed Ingram in his first test of the season against a wing in his weight class. Ingram shot 2 of 10 from the field and fouled out in 26 minutes. Quote, "One of the things Brandon has to realize, and I'm sure he does, is you're the most improved player in the league," Pelicans coach Steve Van Gundy said. "You were an all-star. You've got a target on your back. People are coming at you every night. You and Zion are the subject of the scouting reports and the game plan and the whole thing. You're facing the best defenders, and they're coming at you. He'll perform well. He just had a rough night tonight." Van Gundy is known for getting the most out of his talent. His teams have reached the playoffs 8 times in his 11 full seasons as a head coach. He also pulls no punches, and in practice can be detailed-oriented to the nth degree. Quote, "If he sees something wrong, he's going to stop the play," Ingram said. "He makes sure everything is right. Everything is really coached. Every single thing." Most of the Pelicans' practices during training camp have lasted 2 to 3 hours. This is a big change from last season, when they sometimes would go as few as 45 minutes. Hiring Van Gundy signaled that the Pelicans were confident that Ingram and Williamson, their 2 young stars, were receptive to being coached hard. Ingram can be unflinchingly honest. Even when he plays well, he points the finger at himself. "I was expletive," he said about his defense after the New Orleans' first preseason win. Ingram views his tendency to be hard on himself 2 ways. At times, he can wallow in it to the point that it becomes detrimental. He also believes that this extreme accountability helps him self-correct. Quote, "I do take myself out of these things when I get frustrated," Ingram said, "but also, I like it. I like getting frustrated at myself because it makes me a tough person. When I experience the same thing, I know how to handle it. I like the frustration at times. I like the process of becoming good and great." And with that, we will take one final look outside of sports at our deaths in the Acadiana area before coming to the end of the news today. So, our funerals in the Acadiana area today, there's only one. It is for John LeBlanc Jr., and service will be held at the St. Basile Catholic Church at 2 p.m. And that is all for today. This has been Local News Live for the day of Wednesday, December 23rd, 2020. It has been my pleasure to read for you. We will be taking a break for Christmas Eve and Christmas Day, but we will be back with you on Monday. You can read these stories and more at theadvocate.com. And you can find the replay of this broadcast at aocinc.org. That's aocinc.org. For all of those that celebrate, I wish you a very Merry Christmas. Please have a healthy and safe holiday season as we move forward into the new year. And please continue to have a great day, Acadiana.